announcement there.
You're listening to Head South Radio with your host, Cat Meyer, a podcast dedicated to prioritizing pleasure and removing the stigma and shame around sex. We're here to be curious and have an open conversation about sexual health and relational wellness. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. The information discussed is not a substitute for professional medical advice.
Happy Valentine's Day! I'm your host, Cat Meyer, and today is the 1-year anniversary of launching Head South Radio. Today's episode is a quickie story I just wanted to share with all of you. In mid-January, after moving to Los Angeles, I discovered that a sex industry trade show was happening. Unfortunately, it was happening within a week, and I can't believe we pulled it off. I was miraculously able to secure the last available booth on the last day of registration. I then immediately called my mom and dad and asked them to FedEx me all of the supplies I would need to exhibit from Pennsylvania. I followed that call with a call to Isis, who, in addition to managing our TikTok, helps me in all of the ways a startup founder needs support, and asked her to come help me in LA. This was her first time coming to the West Coast, and I was super excited for her. A few days later, the package from my parents and Isis arrived in LA on time. Isis and my partner John helped me load up my EV6, and we headed over to the venue to set up our booth. We realized our booth was in a prime spot right by the entrance, which was very lucky considering we were the last sign-up, and this was our very first trade show. We looked around as other vendors started to set up, and man, did they have impressive setups. With custom lighting, flooring, neon signs, customized platforms, and shelving units, like everything and anything. They were like here to display. And truth be told, I was pretty intimidated, and I reminded myself that I started Head South with an intentional, minimal approach to everything we do. And so although we just had a nice little tablecloth, some product, a few signs, and a few banners, and it was pretty minimal and simple, it fit our brand and our aesthetic. And the 2 days exhibiting were pretty much a whirlwind blur of time. But I do have to say we met so many lovely people, experts in the industry, retail buyers, other sexual wellness founders, sexuality professionals, and curious customers. It was so amazing to be welcomed into this community, and I was so proud of Head South and the very positive reception we had. People loved the display, packaging, the name, the branding. They loved that we were refillable, and they loved the formula. They would often come to the table, chat to us for a little bit, sample the product, the serums, the oil on their hands, and then take a stroll around the floor, only to come back a little bit later to tell us, it's still slippery, I love it, I'll take one. But there was one interaction that left Isis and I both in awe and kind of like, wow, did that just happen? It was towards the end of the second day, a woman walked up to our booth and said, "Oh, Head South, I was hoping you'd be here." To which I responded, "What? You've heard of us?" I was kind of in shock, actually. And she said, yeah, she's been listening to the podcast since last year. And she told us that she discovered it because she was going through the process of opening up her relationship with her partner, and her sister recommended she listen to Head South Radio, and that her sister had heard about us from a friend. This woman was so lovely, and she expressed how much she enjoyed our podcast and how helpful some of the episodes had been for her. We continued chatting, she purchased some product, and then she walked away and enjoyed the rest of the trade show. I turned to Isis and I was like, holy shit, that was so cool. It was pretty incredible, honestly. The woman was essentially our first fan in real life. The first person to recognize us in public and be so excited that we were there. You see, when you create something like a podcast, for me, something that's digital, and then you put it out in the world, I assume that my loved ones and my friends are listening, and that it's hopefully reaching other people, especially people who, discover us through our guests. But don't get me wrong. I know we have listeners beyond my immediate family. I receive feedback and encouragement from friends and strangers alike on Instagram. But until this very moment, I had never interacted with a person in person and had a conversation about the impact our podcast had had on them. And it truly meant the world to me. It was pretty surreal and incredible, and it's all I've ever intended with Head South. When I created it, I just wanted to help people destigmatize the taboos and shame around conversations about sex and help them prioritize their relational and sexual wellness. And so I'm so appreciative for all of you listening, and for those of you who share our episodes with your friends and family, I wanted to extend a very special thank you to my family, especially my mom and dad, my partner John, my friends, and my very talented team who help create this podcast, as well as the team who helps me make the products. Everyone who is supporting me in making Head South possible, I am so very grateful for all of you. That's all for this Quickie episode. Tune in next week when we talk about everything you ever wanted to know about anal sex. Special thanks to all of our guests. Head South is hosted by Cat Meyer, produced by Isis Barlow, edited by Megan Hook, with music by Lily Rezi Rothman, graphics by Ella Chodos Irvine, cover art by Gina Ship Casey, and intro by Murph Meyer.
If you're looking for me, I'm heading south. All year round I'm going down. Now you know where I'll be, I'm heading south. So come on, look me right in the mouth.